Before we begin this terrifying tale, let me provide some context about Japanese culture that will help you understand this story. In Japan, the yakuza are organized crime syndicates with strict hierarchies and codes of honor. They often run legitimate businesses as fronts while engaging in illegal activities. The concept of losing face or being disrespected is extremely serious in Japanese organized crime culture. Pachinko parlors and small gambling operations are common meeting places for people from various walks of life. The loyalty between gambling companions, even casual ones, carries significant weight in Japanese society. Now let's begin our story. Listen to me carefully. I don't have any psychic abilities or spiritual sensitivity, but when it comes to fear, there are things far more terrifying than ghosts. I used to work at a small printing company. It was truly a terrible place. We regularly printed fake stock certificates for gangsters and defamatory flyers for political groups. We did things that clearly violated the law on a daily basis. But not everything we did was bad. One day, a little elementary school girl came in with her parents. She had brought a handwritten paper about her missing cat. She wanted us to print many copies of it. Honestly, we didn't usually take individual requests. My boss even kindly told them that making copies at a convenience store would be much cheaper, but that little girl wouldn't listen. She said she would pay with all her saved New Year's money. It was foolish, really, getting charged for unnecessary flyers by such a shady company, but I think at that moment we all came together as one. There was this inexplicable sense of duty to help this child. We made various improvements and printed a magnificent stack of flyers for her. We borrowed photos of cats and made full-color prints with pictures instead of handwritten text. On delivery day, my boss bowed his head to the parent and child. I was shocked. He was like a demon who would never back down, even to gangsters with full-body tattoos. At first, I didn't understand why he was bowing, but I think everyone else had figured it out. I sincerely apologize. As a professional, I have done something inexcusable. I lost the original document. That's what he said. I thought, what is this man talking about? But his next words were electrifying. As an apology, though it may not be adequate, I have prepared a replacement. Of course, no payment is necessary. Since this is a breach of contract, I will also help distribute the flyers as a penalty. Of course, he hadn't lost anything. In fact, the original was still posted on the workshop wall. I seriously thought I wouldn't mind if this guy hit on me. Well, we were also free at the time with no work, which was a big factor. Oh, by the way, they found the cat. It was being fed by an elderly woman at an apartment building a little distance away. Thanks to the flyers, the old woman contacted them. So that was the kind of company it was, on the verge of bankruptcy and full of idiots. Sorry, I got off track there. Now, this is where the scary story begins. That was quite a long introduction, wasn't it? Well, they say men are better when they last longer. Forgive me. At that time, some small-time thug apparently embezzled money from some organization's office. It's a common story, so we got a job printing flyers to distribute to adult entertainment establishments, saunas, yakiniku restaurants, love hotels, and other businesses in that network. Usually, they hire detectives to track someone down, corner them thoroughly, and that's the end of it. But this time they decided to use a human wave tactic. Apparently, they wanted to test the loyalty of their subordinates. Our company would make money from it, so we didn't care about the circumstances. The worst part was that this guy and I were gambling buddies at the pachinko parlor. I knew his contact information and where he lived. When they showed me his photo, I knew I was in trouble. A devil and an angel literally fought in my head. The devil said, if you say one word, this whole thing will be over. Give them the address and phone number right now, and it'll end immediately. You'll probably get a bonus. The angel argued back, wait, are you still a man? Even if it was a short relationship, a friend is a friend. He let you play his machine, bought you meals. While I was mulling this over in my head, we had already accepted the job. Rather than regret, I only thought something like whatever about it. But my friendship proved to be real later on. The fact that I thought of him as a friend meant he thought of me the same way. Unfortunately, it was about 2 days later, I think. He came to my place in the middle of the night. Ding dong, ding dong. It was really noisy, and I irritably opened the door to find this gorilla-like intimidating guy standing there. From now on, I'll call this guy Gorilla. Gorilla started explaining the situation, but I was filled with the desire for him to just leave. Besides, I don't understand gorilla language. Well, joking aside, he started telling me his story. He barged into my apartment. It was a terribly cliched reason. Debt. If he had said it was for a sickly sister or to donate to a facility about to close, I might have sympathized. But his reason was woman-related. Not knowing his place, he kept spending money on a hostess at an expensive club and racked up massive debts. At this point, it was meaningless for him to complain that the woman had deceived him. More than that, I wanted him to leave quickly. I didn't think I was being watched, but there's always that 1 in a million chance. You know that saying, a drowning man will grasp at straws. I wonder who came up with that. Gorilla grabbed onto me with all his might. He started threatening me, saying that if I kicked him out and he got caught, he would give them my name as an accomplice. What the hell was I supposed to do? Looking back now, I think I should have handed him over to the gangsters immediately. Or if I couldn't do that, I should have consulted someone like my boss. But I ended up hiding him. As a result, I lost my little toe, but I'll tell you about that later. The next few days were mentally exhausting. During the day at work, I printed Gorilla's face. The gangsters kept demanding new information, so we had to make new flyers one after another. I'd come home tired to my apartment and Gorilla would be there. My life was completely filled with Gorilla. Where was I? The zoo. At first, perhaps because even a beast has some sense of guilt, Gorilla was well behaved, but he got bored of staying cooped up in the room and started making various demands. He wanted Coke, magazines, ramen. I wanted him to leave as soon as possible. Well, as you can probably guess from the flow of the story, Gorilla was captured by scary keepers with pictures drawn on their backs. One day, I came home. The moment I opened the front door, I was suddenly dragged into the room. Click, whoomp, that kind of feeling. Without understanding what was happening, duct tape was slapped over my mouth, and my hands and feet were tied with what was probably packing vinyl rope. That stuff cuts into your hands and seems to generate heat. My hands and feet were tied together with vinyl rope, and I was rolled onto the floor. I really thought they were incredibly practiced at this. Before I could even think of resisting, my hands and feet were immobilized. My head was full of this is bad thoughts. But I was concerned that Gorilla wasn't there. Then, a man who seemed to be the leader among them, looked into my eyes as I lay on the floor and started talking. He had a strangely high-pitched voice with an abnormal tone that rang harshly in my ears. I think that's what the devil's voice sounds like. Are you that guy's partner? I shook my head dramatically from side to side. My head kept banging against the floor, but I couldn't afford to worry about that. This is your room, right? If you're not his partner, then what are you? I wanted to explain, but with duct tape wrapped around my mouth, all I could do was make muffled sounds. Well, my existence seemed to be a mystery to them too. Let's change locations for now, the high-pitched voice man instructed the men around him. I was put into a black van with no windows and blindfolded with a towel. I don't really understand time intervals. I think we drove for about an hour. We got out of the van, walked, and when the towel was removed, there was a naked gorilla right in front of me. Gorilla was lying on a concrete floor, groaning, "Ugh." Sometimes he coughed violently, but I think his consciousness was confused. His face was so swollen that his nose and cheeks seemed to be at the same level. His entire body was covered with spots of various colors, blue, black, and others. I think he had been beaten so much that he had internal bleeding in various places. He didn't seem to notice me. I had the duct tape ripped off all at once, and the man with the harsh voice questioned me again. "Hey, what's your relationship with this guy?" I could clearly see that if I answered wrong here, I would end up like Gorilla. I explained that I had met Gorilla at a pachinko parlor, and through that connection he had imposed himself on my home. The high-pitched voice man didn't seem to be listening very carefully. Is that true? You're not lying because you want to be saved. Sigh. I denied it with all my strength. I emphasized that while we were indeed slot machine buddies who went out to eat together occasionally, I didn't steal any money. But this backfired. Why do you know that this guy stole money? Understanding that I had dug my own grave, I fell silent. If we had been together for several days, wouldn't it be natural for me to know what he had done and what kind of people were chasing him? But I was an employee of the flyer printing company, so I knew more detailed inside information. I fell silent from the guilt of that. Well, whatever. Hey, the high-pitched voice man called out to the men nearby and they started preparing something. They rolled something over and placed it near Gorilla. It was a drum barrel. Are these guys going to cement Gorilla into it, or something? I thought carelessly. If it had been just cement, that would have been fine. Really? The men were putting Gorilla into the drum barrel, with 4 people working together. Gorilla offered no resistance and was put into the drum barrel smoothly. All he did was groan. I'll teach you something good. It's this guy's fault you got caught. He called a delivery health service. Funny, right? He told us the location himself. I was both amazed by Gorilla's shamelessness and angry at his carelessness. What was he thinking, doing that while on the run? That small change doesn't matter anymore. This guy is going to make amends. The big problem is that he made fun of us. If we let people look down on us, we're finished. Listen, hey, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. What I want to know is whether you made fools of us together with this guy. How are you going to prove that you didn't steal money from our office? From now on, you're going to be with this guy for a while. After that, I'll ask you just one more time. Got it? I don't know how long it will take, but think carefully. Well, personally, I sympathize with you. After rattling off all that in one breath, the high-pitched voice man called to a man beside him and left. I trembled from anxiety about what was about to begin. I was truly shaking from the bottom of my heart. I was forced to sit in a chair and wrapped around and around with that vinyl rope. Then I was lifted up, chair and all, by 2 men and placed in front of the drum barrel containing Gorilla. I was only about 50 centimeters away from Gorilla's face. There couldn't be a more unfortunate arranged meeting than this, could there? Gorilla was groaning, I also lost the will to resist. I just prayed to be released quickly. 5 men were working around us. I don't think it was my imagination that these tough-looking men seemed to be moving reluctantly. A thick hose was stuck into the drum barrel. Let's see. It was about the thickness of a 500 ml Coke can, I think. Foolishly, I was scared, thinking, so it really is concrete. That hose was connected to a strange container. You know, those big plastic containers for storing clothes and small items. It was connected to something like that on tall casters about as tall as we were. Hey, what is this? What are you going to do? I was shaking from my toes to the top of my head. After the work was finished, the men did a final check and then looked at me. And they said something unexpected. Hey, if it gets tough, close your eyes. Hang in there. I didn't understand what was about to begin, or why they spoke such kind words. Gorilla in the drum barrel. Me right in front of him. Well, we're leaving now. Hang in there. They said, pulled a lever attached to the caster and hurriedly left. Only we were left, not knowing where this place was or what that container was. Plop. There was a sound too solid for concrete. Starting with that lump falling, there was a rushing sound. Shh. As something flowed down from the container, Gorilla stopped groaning, and now started screaming. Yeah, while desperately trying to writhe his body. At first, with the hose stuck into the drum barrel, I couldn't tell what was filling the inside, but soon the drum barrel was full and I could see what it was. Crabs. Crabs ranging from fist size, to about the size of a little fingernail filled Gorilla's drum barrel, to overflowing. At first I didn't understand why they would do such a thing. What's the big deal with just crabs? Were they going to make gorilla and crab miso soup? That would be scary in its own way. But when gorilla, who had been writhing for a while, started letting out screams resembling roars, understood the horror right in front of me. Really about 50 centimeters in front of me. Hey, help me. These things are getting inside me. Gorilla was sweating profusely and screaming at the top of his lungs, while begging me for help. The crabs had eaten through Gorilla's body and were entering inside. Even though I couldn't move, Gorilla kept emphasizing body parts. My ass hurts. My legs. My legs. My legs. Stop it, I don't want to imagine it. But Gorilla in front of me kept letting out what could no longer be called screams but roars. And Gorilla screamed for hours. No, I don't really know how many hours or minutes or how much time passed. Foam and blood pooled in his mouth. Blood came from his eyes and nose. But still Gorilla kept screaming. When his face went from red to deep blue and he started vomiting blood like water from a faucet, the crabs noticed their next point of entry. The crabs swarmed toward Gorilla's face, making strange grinding sounds as they clung to his mouth and eyes. Gorilla screamed, kept shaking his head, and banged his head against the drum barrel, but the crabs wouldn't forgive him. I couldn't bear to watch, but there was nothing I could do. I writhed and writhed. I slammed my body against the drum barrel along with the fixed chair, but due to Gorilla's weight and the weight of the crabs, it didn't budge. My ears became numb from Gorilla's screaming, and it became difficult to hear sounds. Finally, making a somehow foolish sound, Gorilla became quiet. Rustling sounds continued from inside the drum barrel. Gorilla was twitching as if convulsing, but I couldn't tell whether Gorilla was moving or the crabs inside were moving him. When his eyeball was pushed out and a crab emerged from inside, my consciousness reached its limit too. I woke up to rustling sounds and saw what used to be Gorilla moving in sync with the crab's movements, and I vomited. I don't know what hell is like, but I can't possibly imagine it being worse than that. The crabs were still clinging to Gorilla's body and gnawing on it. Gorilla's body tilted, and his neck fell toward me. At that moment, crabs overflowed from the drum barrel and changed their target to the living prey in front of them. I screamed. Crabs were dropping onto my feet with plop plop sounds. They clung to my legs. At first it was just ticklish. Then it became itchy. Even when I writhed my body along with the chair, they kept clinging to my legs more and more. Soon, sharp pain shot through my little toe, and I realized crabs had invaded me too. Being drilled with a drill would be 10,000 times better. They were gradually peeling off my nail and trying to get inside me. I defecated and urinated, but the crabs wouldn't forgive me. Whether my throat would break or my screaming would be meaningless. I screamed, but the crabs tried to enter my body. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I had already gone crazy, when I heard a high-pitched voice and several men came screaming and swatting the crabs away. I heard a snap in my head from relief and lost consciousness. Hey, are you alive? Hey. I woke up to the sensation of being slapped on the cheek. The high-pitched voice man in front of me looked like an angel or God. My little toe throbbed wetly with pain. I shed tears of joy that it was only my little toe. Are you awake? The high-pitched voice questioned me. I made sounds that weren't really words. Answer the question. Are you this guy's partner? Pointing at the drum barrel, the high-pitched voice man questioned me. I shook my head from side to side as if it would twist off, and though I nearly suffocated from snot, tears and drool, I tried to convey that it wasn't true. The high-pitched voice man and his cronies were finally convinced, and untied my vinyl rope. I had no strength in my legs, but the pain in my little toe told me my feet were still there. After that I was stuffed into a van, and kicked out in front of my apartment. For more than a week, I couldn't eat anything or go outside. For some reason I don't understand, my boss from work came to visit and left an envelope before leaving. Inside was a stack of bills. Ghosts are cute things. I know of nothing in this world more terrifying than a crab drum barrel bath.